What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be reacting to IndyCar Split Part 2. Reacted to Part 1 and that gave me some good insight on, because I had said in that video I haven't watched a lot of IndyCar videos to really understand what's going on, and I know that this is on the split between the divisions and everything, which was fascinating to learn about in Part 1 because I've heard it being mentioned briefly in other videos, but then it obviously went into more detail in Part 1, so I'm excited to get into Part 2. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe. Over half of you that watch my videos still aren't subscribed. Just hit the bell, it takes 2 seconds, and if you'd like to become a member on this channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. Right, let's go. Okay, nice. Top heavy with foreign drivers, cars, engines, and road races, but the races draw huge crowds.
Kart owners were called an arrogant group of the rich who drove away the man who controlled their biggest event.
Yeah.
Just a few years prior, IndyCar was described as a battle between the naive and the stupid. Now people were forced to choose which one was more appealing. Throughout 1995, both sides made arguments why their series would be better when they went head-to-head in '96.
The IRL's objective of an oval-based series is predicated on the foundation that there are simply too many road and street courses presently offered. Often that leads to a lack of passing, which in turn translates to a lack of excitement for the spectators.
Yeah.
In the last several years, with the growth of NASCAR, people have begun to realize that if you're going to succeed in the United States, if you're going to compete for your television ratings and for your sponsorship, you got to be on ovals. Americans like to see the whole thing.
The IRL plan to end their season every year at the Indy 500, the biggest race and championship decided on one dramatic
I feel like
day.
America does love an
Pay
oval,
more money
don't they?
CART.
I just deeped that in my head.
In addition to a minimum $1 million purse guaranteed for each event, the IRL will offer the only current $100,000 first place payoff in Indianapolis car racing for events other than the Indy 500. Each IRL race will be televised live on ABC.
Wow.
CART was an established product. They had the advantage of having the star drivers and teams that fans were connected to. The IRL promised to put excitement first, and the stars would eventually develop over time. When the IRL put together their series, their biggest problem was a lack of established drivers. All the big names stayed in CART, and nobody knew who any of the IRL drivers were. Of those who found IRL,
This is so
rides,
crazy to
John
me that this
Paul
actually
Jr.,
happened. It's
Ari
like a war in
Leyendijk, and Roberto
Indy.
Guerrero were the only 3 drivers who had ever won a race. Scott Brayton won the pole at Indy in 1995. Eddie Cheever spent
Especially
9 years in Formula
all the
1.
drivers and stuff doing interviews and talking about the split.
Teams and drivers. CART teams were encouraged to compete, but no team decided to run both series because of a controversial rule and a resulting boycott. The IRL was very careful to create its schedule, so
Disney
there was no
World.
conflict with CART,
What?
and teams could run both series if they wanted in 1996. At first, the 25-8 rule was unpopular due to the fact that traditionally nothing was guaranteed at Indy. It was an open competition, where everyone had to earn their starting spots. In the years between 1993 and 1995, Bobby Rahal and Team Penske cars missed the race because they were too slow. No matter how much money you had, everyone was equal entering the Indy 500. Critics said the 25-8 rule took that away. But 2 months after the IRL schedule was released, a new CART race in Brazil was added to their schedule that created a conflict with the second IRL race in Phoenix. As CART teams now couldn't run all the IRL races, the 25-8 rule hurt them dearly.
We're being shut out of Indianapolis. We have 26 or 27 drivers here, and 8 of them would have been allowed to run Indianapolis. What would we do with the other 20 guys? Just send them home?
Yeah.
When they started to
Not good.
regulate who can and who can't run in the Super Bowl, it'd be like going to the Dallas Cowboys and saying, hey, you guys can't play this year.
So instead of joining the
Fair point.
IRL, CART teams fought back and did so with strong destruction. On December 18th, 1995, CART officially announced their battle plans. Instead of racing at Indy in May, they created the US 500. Not only was open-wheel racing split, but now both sides were actively trying to hurt each other.
Yeah.
It was only going to get worse from there.
Oh. So where do we go from here?
The Magic Kingdom,
Disney World, of course.
the home of Mickey Mouse. And
Never been
an
to
IndyCar race?
one in Florida.
That's right, the inaugural Indy
Really want
200
to.
at
I've
Walt
been to the one in
Disney World
Paris.
is set to take place Saturday, January 27th on the newly constructed 1-mile
That is
flyover
crazy. They had
just
an
inside
Indy
the main gates
race.
of the Magic Kingdom. The 200-mile event will feature a $1 million purse and will be televised
Disneyland.
live by ABC television.
Well, I think what's going to happen is probably
Not
one
the
of
castle in the
greatest,
background.
venues and races to come off in the last quarter of a century.
To start the IRL, Tony George and Disney World built a 1-mile oval inside the world's most popular theme park. To hold a race at such a venue was seen as
look
a
at that
major
footage.
success for the new series. The first IRL race was scheduled for January 27th, one day before the Super Bowl. The idea was that when people opened the sports page on Super Bowl Sunday, they would read about the IRL race. The drivers in the event were underdogs, to say the least. Butch Brickell was a
This has gotta be my
stuntman who raced power boats.
favorite thing ever.
Stan Waddles was a sports car racer who once worked in a Connecticut school as a teaching aide for kids with learning disabilities. John Paul Jr. returned to full-time racing for the first time since he spent 2.5 years in jail in the late 80s when he wouldn't testify against his drug-smuggling father. Jim Buick was a 55-year-old commercial airline pilot whose last IndyCar race was in 1981. Tony Turco, Rick DeLorto, and Bill Demporo raced in the American IndyCar Series, a short-lived series that raced outdated Indy cars. At Disney, Buick, DeLorto, and Demporo were sent home because mechanical issues kept them from completing their driving tests. In practice for the race, Chilean driver Eliseo Salazar suffered a broken leg in a hard crash.
Don't want to see that. Well, that wasn't a very good outcome.
We're ready for the inaugural event in the Indy Racing League here at Walt Disney World. They began a while ago with
I
the
still can't
opening
believe this went
ceremonies
on.
with that most typical
What?
Disney flair.
Before the race at Disney, 400 doves were released into the air. A sold-out crowd of 51,000 fans filled the stands.
Wow.
A ceremonial brick from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was placed at the track.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
The dream is real. The green flag
Wow.
Brian Sweeney and Buddy Lazier jumps into the lead.
This is mind-blowing to me.
The race was won by Buzz Calkins. Before that,
Buzz
had
Lightyear?
only 2 podiums in 3 years in Indy Lights.
It was meant to happen.
The next IRL race was 2 months later in Phoenix, won easily by Ari Leyendijk. Buddy Lazier was hospitalized in intensive care after breaking his pelvis and a vertebrae in a practice crash. If the IRL was a series meant to provide young sprint car drivers with big opportunities, the embodiment was Tony Stewart. In 1995, the 24-year-old was the first to win 3 USAC championships in 1 year. In the first 2 IRL races, Stewart proved sprint car drivers could easily adapt to driving Indy cars, and he led both races. Driving for Team Menard, he promised to be a threat to win the Indy 500. Undoubtedly, he never would have gotten a ride in CART.
I got where I'm at through hard work and determination, and there's just as many guys out here with determination as there are, with talent. So they just need to keep plugging and keep getting on the phone and calling these guys, because I think we're going to open up their eyes to some midget sprint car guys. And I think it'll work. You just got to keep after it.
When May rolled around, the Indy 500 attracted even more interesting drivers. Bronco Brad Murphy was an Arizona rodeo cowboy who hadn't driven a race car in 7 years. Double O Joe Gosick was one of the best super modified drivers in the Northeast. 24-year-old Rayson Gardner was the youngest driver to go over 500 miles per hour at Bonneville. He spent 2 years in the American IndyCar Series. Scott Harrington drove in 1 kart race back in 1989. To get in the Indy 500, Harrington gave up everything he owned.
Rookie Scott Harrington has spent every available penny to finance his team. He sold his vintage 77 Porsche along with fiancée Tracy's Mustang. Over the past 3 weeks, they've maxed their credit cards, received an eviction notice, and had the power shut off in their apartment.
Harrington drove to the track each day in a borrowed 1987 Ford Tempo. Newspapers told the story of a local racing fan who sent him $2,000 to support his team. The new asphalt meant speeds would be at an all-time high, and people at home got to see every bit of the chaos. For the first time in Indy 500 history, every day of practice was televised. ESPN2 had 3 hours of live practice coverage every day.
Wow.
Amid all this, people were more unhappy than ever. For the first time, the best drivers and teams were skipping the Indy 500. With a serious chance that the US 500 might grow into a better race, the Indy 500 might never again be as big as it once was. Robin Miller of the Indianapolis Star was vocal in his belief that track management was destroying everything that made the Indy 500 great. Open competition, the best competitors. Indianapolis area Target stores briefly refused to carry Indy 500 merchandise in support of CART. In the lead-up, even retired drivers were taking sides. Mario Andretti called the IRL a, quote, travesty to the sport.
Oh no!
The Oval Series, you almost have to go back to the 50s. Why do we want to go back to the 50s? Times have changed, guys.
Mario even said he would come out of retirement to run the US 500 if it wouldn't distract from Michael Andretti's championship hopes.
Wow.
54-year-old Gary Bettenhausen entered the US 500 in a team owned by his brother Tony. AJ Foyt offered to enter 56-year-old Al Unser Sr. in the Indy 500. Big Al turned down the offer after a few days' deliberation. Foyt himself didn't think he could lose enough weight to fit in an Indy car, or he too would be in the race. 59-year-old Gordon Johncock was looking for a ride at Indy as well. With friends turned into enemies, institutions torn apart, and race cars at the fastest in their history, the month of May in 1996 was unlike anything seen before or since.
That was good. I definitely enjoyed that episode more than... I mean, I enjoyed both episodes so far, but part 2 is my favourite. I'm sorry, but the most mind-blowing thing to me out of that whole episode was the fact that Indy did a race at Disneyland. What? How have I never heard of this before? And then seeing all of that footage and then like Mickey Mouse in the parade, I was like, what is going on? So mind-blowing to me. Yeah, part 2 was good. Part 1 was good. I'm excited to get into part 3. So with that being said, if you have any other videos that you'd like me to react to, drop them in the comments. I'm working my way through everybody's suggestions at the moment. If you did want to check out any of my other socials, they are all linked down below. And if you want to become a member on this channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. But I hope you enjoyed today's reaction, and I will catch you next time for the next one. Bye!